This is the USMC combat knife by Tops Knives, and it is designed by Lacie Zabot, who has an extensive background in military and law enforcement. He's a pretty cool dude. I actually got a chance to have a phone interview with him about the design of this knife specifically, but because my phone is not that great, he could hardly hear me, I could hardly hear him on the speakerphone, so it didn't get recorded. So anything I say on his behalf is going to be paraphrasing, unfortunately. But this is the knife. When most people think USMC combat knife, they immediately think of K-bar. And that's probably because since 1942, at the beginning of World War II, the K-bar company got the contract to supply all the troops with combat knives. So this is it. This is the 5 1/4 inch version, the shorter variation of the K-bar, but it's pretty much the exact same thing. And this video is really not to downplay K-bar at all, because I actually love their knives. I think they're pretty cool. They're awesomely priced, but that's part of the reason why the military chose them, is because, you know, it's a great knife, not the best knife, but it has a great price point. So that's how they choose a lot of their things. This knife is not a copycat of the K-bar. The only thing reminiscent of the K-bar in this knife is the rings and the handle. Everything else is designed from the ground up. And when Lacie designs a knife, the first thing he looks at and designs is the handle, because the handle is the most important part of the knife, because you could put a shitty handle on a good blade and it'll still turn out to be a shitty knife, but you could put a good handle on a spoon, as he put it, and he could still probably kick some ass. So so he designs the handle first, which I think is a really important part, because the handle is going to be pretty much the only thing connecting you and the knife, and as an operator you're going to need to have complete control over the blade. So let's start from the handle. From the butt of the handle, we have something that a lot of Tops Knives has, and that is a pry bar / glass breaker. And that is something that the standard K-bar does not have, unfortunately. But you know, you can break glass, you can hammer stuff in with it. Anything that you probably wouldn't want to use the tip for. Although you could probably use a tip, and you know, since it's stout enough, you probably won't do any damage to it. But I mean, you got a nice glass breaker pry bar right there. Also has a lanyard hole, which the K-bar doesn't have. Moving up, you have the actual handle. So it's full tang construction, which means it's full thickness of metal throughout the entire handle, unlike the K-bar, which has a stick tang. And because of that, there's a thinning of the metal right at the handguard. And what a lot of people would experience is that their knives would break right there. And that's a really unfortunate thing to have happen, especially if you're away from supply or you're camping in the middle of the woods and something goes wrong. So to have your knife break at the handle would pretty much render it useless. So the USMC combat knife pretty much took care of that right out the bat by using full tang construction. So the shape of the handle is really cool because it's not completely round, so there's no chance of the knife rolling in your hand at all while you're using it, so you can always keep the edge facing towards the enemy or whatever you're cutting. So that's also a really good thing. Something that the K-bar does not have because it's fully round. The way I wrapped this knife, however, though, it does have a little bit of a bevel, so if you guys want to, I can show you guys how to do that as well if you have a K-bar and want to improve the feel and the use of your knife. And something that I like a lot on this handle as well is that it has a pivot point on both sides. And the main reason for that is so in a knife fighting situation, you can easily reverse your grip. And also in a survival situation, it can also be used as a handpiece for a fire drill. So that's a really cool part of it. You don't have to build an extra piece because you already have one on you at all times. The handle material is also pretty cool. It is linen micarta, which is probably one of my favorite knife handle materials because it is impact resistant, heat resistant, chemical resistant, and also has really good wet gripping capabilities. This one, especially with the rings milled into it, it's super grippy and super solid, even more wet, oily, or bloody, if the time ever comes. So moving forward from the handle, you got the handguard. And this is also another really big feature that I liked that solved a big issue that I had with the K-bar, and that is this stamped piece handguard, which is not part of the blade. I tended to bend mine a lot, and whenever I hit it with the baton, if I ever threw it for some reason, this piece would always bend towards the handle or towards the blade. And luckily it's soft metal, so you could always bend it back with a wrench or something like that, but once you bend it once, it's hard to get it back to the way it was. So that was a big problem I had with it. This being all part of the blade, it's a 1/4 inch thick, and there's no way you're going to break this. And if you do break it, you probably have other things to worry about. The handguard's also grooved, so you can choke up on the blade if you would like to, or you can reverse your grip, and that also keeps your fingers in place. So there's no chance of your hand slipping into the blade. And so moving it from the handguard, you got this sweet bayonet bowie style blade. The bowie style blade has been designed and refined for almost 200 years, so pretty much you can't go wrong with it. The center of gravity is pretty much right at the handguard, and it's also pretty much straight center line down the knife as well. So moving from the knife, you have the sheath. This sheath is pretty much the same sheath that that Tops uses throughout a variety of knives that they have. So it's a pretty universal fit for this length of blade. That being said, since it's not a custom sheath, there are some limitations to it. One, it can only be used one way, and that's that way. So for left-handed users, you might be out of luck. It's because if you flip it over, you can't go quite all the way in. So that's one of the problems I have with the sheath. And also, because it has to accommodate different handles, it does not have snap closures that are custom fit to the knife itself. So the sheath is also MOLLE compatible on the side. As you can see, since it's such a long blade and a long sheath, you have a lot of webbing that you can mount with it. And standard MOLLE, so it fit onto any backpack, any vest, onto any pouches that may be big enough to accommodate this. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So that is the overview of the USMC combat knife, and stay tuned for a test video, and I'll probably link that somewhere around here.